Welcome to freedomlovin.com, where we focus on building freedom in an unfree world. Through personal development, location independence, and passive income strategies. Now here's your host, Kevin Koskela.
Welcome to the Freedom Lovin' Podcast. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 87. And in just a minute, I have an interview I'm going to play that I did with Lucas Barra of the Dream Chasers podcast. And I actually, he interviewed me, and this was a while ago, but he is just putting up some of his old podcasts, and this was one of them. So I thought it was a really good show. There's some insight into building freedom, and we tackled quite a few topics on getting started. So if you're interested in that kind of a thing and how to build freedom, how to build an online business, this is a great show for you to listen to. So I'll have that coming up in just a sec. And I just want to mention that we have a Facebook group. If you're not in it already, just go to Facebook and look us up, Freedom Lovin' Quest, or just go ahead and go to facebook.com/groups/Freedom Lovin'. So that would be great to have you in there. A lot of good topics that come up there and things that people are working on and struggling with and bragging about and everything else. So I think it's really a really cool group, and it's better than having a page, because having the page, I don't even know. It's like some of our posts only get 1 or 2 likes. So I don't even know if anyone's seeing much of anything, which I know they're not actually. So having the group, at least the more people are able to see posts and also interact with myself and other people. It's really a cool thing. I hope you join us soon, and we can connect on there. Having said that, I'm also working on cutting down on my Facebook usage. Speaking of freedom, and I've got some great ideas from friends and from other people in the Freedom Lovin' group about how to do that. And I've had some of these things already in place. Like I have it's a blocker for a Facebook newsfeed. So it's like a plugin or an extension on Chrome that actually blocks your newsfeed. So you can jump on Facebook and not see what people are saying and not see what's going on really, and just do, like I'm on there to do work, so I can do my Facebook ads and things like that. But I think rather than taking a complete break from Facebook, I think my goal is to spend less time. So I think I'll start using the app. I'll start just being mindful of when I'm on Facebook for no reason other than just scrolling through mindless posts. A lot of the posts that I see aren't mindless. I like to get my kind of some cool information from Facebook friends that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. So there are some benefits to it. So I think also a good idea is to take just part of a part of your day and just say, this is my Facebook time. So maybe it's 3:00 in the afternoon. You spend 15 minutes just doing nothing but surfing Facebook. That's something I'm considering as well. And just wanted to mention also, there's a couple of new podcasts I've been listening to. One I picked up about 2 weeks ago. It's called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. I love it. It's been amazing. He's like so eloquent with his words, and he's hilarious. And he also has some really interesting guests and really interesting conversations on there about life and love and just, peace. And it's just really a cool show. And he's actually a stand-up comic, and I've never seen him before, but I really enjoy his show. It's usually about an hour long each. And I think he puts them out weekly. And I hope you check it out, and because I think there's a lot you can get out of it. He also has done a lot of acid and some other drugs, and has some things to say about that. So if you're interested in that, I think you should check it out, Duncan Trussell Family Hour. And then let's see, Smart Drugs Smart. Speaking of drugs, this was a podcast that I heard about a while ago. There's a guy in the Dynamite Circle named Jesse Lawler that started this podcast a while back. I think it was around the time I started Freedom Lovin', but it's having to do with, can you take supplements and increase your brain capacity, or increase your intelligence, or increase whatever it is? Can you take drugs or pills or supplements of any kind and make changes to your brain in a positive way. And so he explores a lot of different topics. And the first thing I noticed was that he did one on lucid dreaming, which is always a interesting topic to me. So that kind of got me interested. I've only listened to I think 3 shows so far, and I'm still kind of investigating it. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it or not. But if that's something you're interested in, check it out. It's called Smart Drug Smarts. It's on iTunes and Stitcher as well. And speaking of iTunes, if you can give us a rating and review there, it would be much appreciated. I know I ask this often, but would love to keep the show going, keep the interesting guests coming, and I love your support. So if you could do that, just click on your iTunes and just click on the rating and review button, and off you go. I also have a new microphone. I finally ordered it's called a Blue Yeti, and it's like, I've seen so many people talk about how it's the best mic for your buck. It's only like $100, and I don't know. Does it sound any better? Does it sound any different? I don't really know. I did a bunch of tests before this show, and I couldn't hear any difference between the quality of sound of this one versus my old cheap $35 microphone. So anyway, if you do notice a difference, I'd love to hear from you. Or if you think it's exactly the same, love to hear that. So yeah, if you could just message me on the sound quality, because I have gotten emails before on when it's really crappy, but this should at least help, 1 degree, 1%, something like that. So on the next show, the next podcast, I'm going to be interviewing a guy named Stephen Nash, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I actually met him in San Diego, and I used to listen to his podcast a long time ago, like back in 2009, and then it went away and he was gone, and I didn't know what happened to him, but I met him at an event here in San Diego, and he is back at it. So he's got a podcast, and he talks about dating and relationships and self-improvement and a lot of stuff. So I'm really interested in getting into what he has to say. He was in the book The Game. If you have read that, it was by Neil Strauss back in 2005, I believe. And that was all about the pickup artist scene. And he was actually one of the main characters in the book. So pretty interesting guy. So I'm really looking forward to having him on Freedom Lovin'. Thanks again for listening. Go out there and build some freedom and enjoy this podcast. And we'll talk to you soon.
Hello, this is Dream Chasers. My name is Lucas Barra. The purpose of this show is to promote CEOs, musicians, athletes, and people who are on the road to chasing their dreams, because it's a big challenge when you want to accomplish a big goal. And I'm bringing on like-minded people who are wanting to accomplish big goals. And I met Kevin Koskela at a networking event in San Diego a few weeks back, and it was one of those connections where we talked for maybe 2 minutes, and then within like a second there was a connection because of our love for podcasting and through the dialogue that we had, and I knew immediately I wanted to have Kevin on the show. We talked some more about the concept, what he's doing, and so I'm very excited to have Kevin here today.
Awesome, thanks. I'm super excited to be here too.
Nice.
This is my first live in-person podcast that I've ever done. So,
well, that's what I'm here for, innovation.
Yeah, awesome. That's what it's about.
Cool. Well, one of the things I love about you, Kevin, is innovation. You're always coming up with these new ideas, whether it be for businesses, new lines of thinking, even in the conversations that we had. And I wanted you to start by talking how you got into being an entrepreneur.
Basically, it started because I made myself unemployable because I worked for corporate America for a few years out of college, and then I got laid off, and I started tinkering with all sorts of things. One of the things that I was doing at the time was I was coaching an adult swim team, and it was just for fun. I mean, it wasn't making any sort of living or anything like that off of it, but I did that for fun to keep myself busy, and it's something that I'd done my whole life. I've always been swimming, and so then I started learning about internet marketing, and I had this idea to start a swim lesson business. Because I thought, well, I could teach lessons, and I could get people coming, to me, and I could put up a website and have them find me that way. So I did that, and then I also at the same time I was reading a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which I think is a must read for anyone that wants to go into business. But most people that want to go into business, they've already read it, because it's one of those books where it's like the light bulb goes off. It doesn't have like the first book. There's a series of them, and the first book doesn't have like a huge amount of practical information, but it's the kind of the mindset that you need. So you need to get out of the idea that you're going to work for this company and it's going to be stable and you're going to get a paycheck forever and you can just work 12 hours a day and everything will be great. Instead, he promotes the idea of gaining more freedom with having a business, and that doesn't mean going out and doing like a plumbing business where you're the plumber or something like that, where you're working for your dollars, because that's even harder than being an employee. That means that you have to work, every minute of the day you have to work or you're not going to make any money.
Right.
So that got me excited about the idea of passive income, or at least the idea of building something and then having that continue to make money while I do other things. So that's where I really got into business. And once I got that concept, I never looked back. Like I never could imagine going back to being in the corporate world or doing something where I had to trade my time for money.
Right. So freedom was a big thing for you. And I know with a lot of people who are in the position that I'm in and you're in, making the decision to have freedom is tough because we're not used to it. What advice would you give to people who are trying to get more freedom for themselves?
Yeah, that's a good point. I do. Freedom is absolutely my number one value. And so in my opinion, like I'd rather have freedom over money. So if you're given the choice, now it all depends. Like, would you rather make $10,000 a year and have freedom, or $50,000 a year and work 8 to 5? I think most people would take the 50,000, but I still value. I'd much rather work for myself, create the schedule myself, be able to take off when I want, and make a lot less money than if I had to work for somebody else and sit there in a cubicle or an office all day and not have control over my day or my year, really. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and how do other people do that? It is a mindset, like you said, and I think that's the tough thing, is getting over the mindset that you have security in a paycheck and getting over the idea that it's someday in the future everything's going to be great. Like you're going to work for 10 years and you're going to go, okay, now I can do fun things. Or you're going to work, like a lot of people think, your whole life, and then when you're 65 or whatever it is, 65 and a half, you retire and then you go travel. And then you like live it up when you're, older, when you're an old person and you're collecting your Social Security or something. That's just as you probably know, that's never going to happen. Like that isn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the likelihood of maintaining a job or being able to keep going like that from company to company is really tough these days. Mm-hmm. So really, it's just getting the mindset, like you're going to have these companies are not going to support you. The government's not going to support you. Like you have to be able to do things yourself, no matter what. Even if you want to work for someone for the rest of your life, you still have to be able to do things that are entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. Like, be able to have some skills that you can take and do. If your company lays you off tomorrow, like, are you ready for that? Or are you just going to be in a panic and have to, go take a job at Starbucks or something? Because otherwise, I think everyone should learn how to support themselves in one way or another.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point, because I'm sure a lot of people in this position have also thought about dropping their jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe on the spot, maybe not, and the consequence could be taking a job at a Starbucks like that. Now, what would you say, and I know there's not really a right answer for this, but should you really have your future lined up for you, or are you kind of one of those people who think you can just kind of jump out of the plane, if you will, and build it as, I guess, land as you go, or something along those lines?
I think, this is a good question. We talked about this last time, and I think that it really depends on your personality. I don't think either one are wrong. I think you can go either way. But if you're going to do, and I totally get the keeping your job, keeping some money, keeping your money coming in while you're building your freedom business or whatever it is that's gonna get you out of that need to go into the office every day. So and so I get that mindset completely, and I'm sort of I like both Actually, I like both ways, because if you do that, you just have to, then you have to spend most of your free time building that business. You just have to. There's no way around it. Like, you can't say, okay, well, I'll just work on Sundays, and the rest of the week I'm just going to go to work and watch ESPN or something. Like, there's no way. It's never going to work. But if you say like there's a guy that in San Diego, his name is Dr. Mike. He's an internet marketer, and he was a doctor, and he got tired after years of being a doctor. He just got tired of the whole thing. I mean, he was working crazy hours. He had a family. He couldn't spend any time with his family because of his hours. He had to get up. Like, his work started at I think it was 6 a.m. So he decided that he wanted to get out of that, but he wanted to make a lot of money still. So he started getting up at 4 a.m. and just working for 2 hours on his business every day. And he did that for, I don't know how long, but several months. And then he had a little business going where he was making a little bit of money. And then he just slowly started building up to where he got to the point where he could quit being a doctor and going to work. and he had a nice little business going.
Wow.
So I think that, I like that way of doing it, where you are building it, but you're just cranking out. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's longer. But you're just putting in the time, and you're spending a lot of hours, building a business, and that can really work. Now, if you just jump off the cliff and you ditch your job, I think that's cool too, because it forces you to do everything. You cannot mess around. I mean, there's no messing around. You have to do it, and it kind of brings in some adventure to your life. Like, it'd be a lot harder to do that in San Diego, where we are, with the cost of rent here and everything. It'd be really tough to keep working. If you just started a business that wasn't making any money and you had no income, it'd be really tough to do that here. But there's places in the world where you could get by on $50 a day or something, or less even, and you don't have to. And your rent may be $200 a month. So that you can go for a while on those kind of costs.
True.
Places like Chiang Mai in Thailand or Vietnam. There's a lot of places like that, and there's a lot of these days now. There's a lot of entrepreneurs from all over the world that settle on these cities, and they just want to make something happen with a low cost of living. So that's why I say there's two ways. You don't necessarily have to do it one way or the other, but I think you should be looking at what needs to be done in either case.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how many entrepreneurs like the ones you just mentioned are out there, traveling from city to city, working on various businesses, especially if you're in corporate America, or you've only had a few jobs, you don't really know what's out there. So I think that's a really important point for people to realize, is there's so much out there that you don't even know about. I actually listened to one of your episodes you did with the Charisma on Command.
Oh, yeah.
Gentleman, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was working in Brazil, which sounded so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. And the thing about all those type of businesses, he had a really successful business, and he was, doing really well. But you don't really even have to be making that much money to be able to travel to so many places in the world. I mean, you can go all over the world and have very little money and make it happen. And I admire people that can do that. I don't really want to do the scrape and buy thing anymore. I think when I was younger, I might have been fine with that, but you can do it. That's why you can bootstrap a business as you travel the world, and it's totally doable these days, and tons of people are doing it. It's the thing that I found, and I think that a lot of people find, is that you don't want to be bouncing around too much when you're building a business. You want to be settled somewhere, and and have where you can get Wi-Fi, and all your stuff is set. Because if otherwise you're going to be, it's going to be kind of a mess. But the fact is that it is possible to be location independent and not have the $100,000 business yet. So.
Well, what would you say to people who are scared to make that jump? What advice would you give them?
Well, just look at your values. What are your values? I mean, where's that fear coming from? Is it why do you want to stick with what you know? Is it just a comfort zone thing, or is it something else? Are you afraid of leaving your hometown because maybe you have a lot of friends and family there, and you're just kind of worried about leaving? Or is it the other one that I hear a lot of is this lifestyle of starting a business, starting an entrepreneurial career, is not common. It's not common. Most people go to work for somebody else. That's how it is. So it's hard to, when you have a circle of friends and family that you see all the time, if nobody's doing that, that's a really hard thing to break out and say, I'm going to do this thing because I want freedom. Because everyone around you, is going to be like, what is it? Like, I don't get it. So, and then some people are going to be supportive, some people aren't. So you may, depending on who you're hanging out with, you may get some people that are not really positive on what you're doing. So I think that's the important thing, is to find somebody or some people that you can, kind of hang out with and learn from, and be able to bounce ideas off of that are going to be supportive.
Totally.
So I think that's the important thing when you have that fear, is like, just find the people in your area that are going to support you, and that you can really get something from, and you can eventually give back to. So yeah, and other than that, just do it.
Just do it. Nike, right?
Yeah, Nike. That's really it.
Yeah, it's so funny, like how often you hear the importance of a good peer group. It's one of those things you really don't put enough value into. Even at my age, at 24, you think, well, everyone's young, no one really cares, they're still trying to figure themselves out. But no, that's still crucial for you, because you're basically attracting the people you want in your life, and then your future is to some degree decided by that. So I'm not saying sit down and psychoanalyze your friend group to the point where you're alienating people, but just kind of look at who you have around you and say, are these people who have similar values as me? Because if they don't, then you gotta cut them loose, or maybe even just try new things to meet new people, because otherwise I don't want to say you have no hope, because that's not true. But you're not going to get the kind of support, like you mentioned, that you need. It is so important who you're hanging out with, and it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I know, because I've gone through it myself, and it's a comfort zone thing again. You have your friends, and you do the same things, and most of them are probably not going to be on your wavelength. And I don't think it's a matter of like just cutting everyone out. It's more a matter of, like you said, finding new groups and new ways of meeting people, and then going from there. And eventually, what you're interested in is gonna change. And 5 years from now, you'll probably have a different group, or some of the same people and some different people. So I think it's great. Yeah, I agree. And talking about the businesses that you've run, you've been doing this for a while now. What keeps you going?
I don't really know what the alternative is. I can't really picture an alternative to doing a business of some kind. So, I don't know. Is that what you're kind of looking for? I mean, I just don't. I couldn't go back and I'm unemployable at this point. So I couldn't go back and work for someone. I didn't enjoy much at all about that. So, it's just the freedom. The freedom of being able to do what I want to do more of the time than what it was like before working in an office, where there just wasn't a lot of freedom. And I think also the travel, like in most companies you get like 2 or 3 weeks a year where you can take a vacation, and to me that's just not enough. And I love to work, so when I travel, I'm working. When I travel, I take my laptop cool. And it's great. I think it's great. I do some work in the morning, then maybe go see something, and then come back. I don't have any problem with working at all times. But yeah, so I just don't see going back at this point. So
yeah, absolutely. And you have a passion for freedom, marketing as well. I mean, could you speak to your passion for marketing as well? What has got you to kind of build businesses around marketing and helping other people?
Yeah, well, I mean, marketing is everything. So that's what I learned when I first started. I did what I knew. I knew how to coach swimming, and I had some specific ways of teaching people how to swim that not that many people were doing at the time. And so I wanted to put this online and make a course out of it. So that's what I did. I just defaulted to what I was already an expert at, and so it was an easy thing to go into. Now, doing marketing, of course, I studied it in school, but you don't really learn actually how to do things until you do them.
Right.
So I had to do a lot. I took a course on internet marketing. That's the first thing I did. And so that was just kind of a learn as I go process. And so since then, I've gone off and done work for other businesses and helped other people market their businesses. And that's where it does become important to become passionate about the process and not just the topic, because the topic I was already passionate about with swimming. And, that was years ago. Now I'm not so passionate about swimming per se anymore, but I am passionate about the idea of, like you said, helping people and the psychology aspect of marketing. So marketing is all about psychology. And once you figure out certain things, you understand how people buy, why people buy, what they're looking for. And it's just a game. I mean, it's fun to figure that stuff out. So that's really what it comes down to. And, these days I spend more time on advertising and sales copy. So those are the two things that I always tell people, like, if you're going to learn if you're going to narrow it down, what you need to learn to do a business, learn how to advertise, learn how to do sales copy. And if you do those two things, you've got everything set. There's nothing else really, because you can hire everything else out. You can't really hire people to advertise for you. You can hire people to do sales copy, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. So
could you talk a little bit more about the psychology behind marketing and what you think separates a good marketer from a great marketer?
Yeah, so it comes down to, it depends on what your product is. It really depends on what you're selling. But for my businesses, it's all about how I'm being perceived, how my products are being perceived, like on my page. And that comes down to the sales copy that I'm writing, because I'm not out there calling people and asking them to buy my product. What they have is my page that they see. So it's everything from starting from the headline. Like, the first thing that everybody looks at is the headline on the page. And really it's just benefits. What is in it for them? That's what people are looking for. What is in it for them? Well, how are you going to benefit them? You have like less than 5 seconds when they go to your webpage to convince them. So it's getting really good at having all of the holes plugged in as far as what people are looking for on a web page. And so with sales copy, the good thing is you can look at what other successful marketers have done and just follow the process and kind of write your own. So if you have your own product, you can follow along with what others have done and just basically copy them and plug in your product information. So that's really it. And there's a lot of things in psychology that come up that I had no idea. Like, even a few years ago, I had no idea, like, any of this stuff. Like, for example, I sell information products. I sell DVDs, a membership site. I have people join as a member, and then books. And most people that are wanting to do something, like whatever it is in life, like for my product, it's triathlon. I help people get ready for a triathlon in swimming. And most people that are going to my site they intend to do a triathlon. So they go to my site and they look at it, and their swimming is their weak spot. So they look and they go, oh yeah, I need this. And they buy it. But where they get their emotional satisfaction is when they click the buy button. They're not actually going to go through and do it. So that is an interesting thing, because it's something like 97% of people that buy products they never actually even do them. And most people don't even open them. That's the weird thing. It's like, you think like you're going to spend money on something, you're going to at least open it, look at it, but most people don't even do that. So there's only a really tiny percentage of people that go in and do the thing. And like, there's a lot of how to set up an online business type of things out there. And they really market to the people that are never going to do anything with it and never even going to open it. So it's an interesting thing, because once you know that, you just want people to click the buy button. That's it. Like, that's all it is. Just click that buy button. So
yeah, I just see the buy button and flashing lights, and buy it.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of psychology around the colors, like the magic button as the orange color that was going around a couple of years ago.
Green is more calming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah,
nice. That's cool. Well, and now that you're actually talking about your own business, I'm sure you have a vision for that. What are some challenges that you're currently encountering?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? Yeah, no. I think so. The challenges that I've run into doing my own business are, one is that not many people are doing this. I said that before. Not many people are doing this. So it's hard to get up when you're a solo entrepreneur, to get up in the morning and just crank out work for 8 hours or even 4 hours. Sometimes it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard to do that, and it sounds kind of weird. But when you go to a job, there's a lot of breaks that you don't even really count as breaks. Like there's just a lot of I remember working and going in a Monday morning, and it's like everybody just kind of walks around and talks about their weekend for a while. And you're not even getting coffee. You're just standing around talking about your weekend. And then there's all the little the coffee breaks, and then there's the lunch, and then a lot of times you take an extra lunch, and then there's a lot of downtime that you don't realize. But when you work for yourself, it's easy to slip into that mode where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just have coffee for a little while, get all charged up, and then it's your day is going by and you're the only one there, so it's much harder to maintain that. So I do some things there to keep myself going, I'll set timers and just say, okay, I'm going to work for half an hour, and then I'm going to take a 5-minute break. And then I just do that for a while, and that works pretty well. And then sometimes I do co-working, which is just working with other people that happen to have internet businesses. And then we're all working, but we can chat here and there, and so it's sort of motivating. But yeah, as far as other challenges that are going on, there's always a challenge for me, because I always want to do things myself, even when it doesn't make any sense. It took me a while. I was doing of course, at first I was doing everything myself. But when you look at the dollar, the value of what you're doing, there's a whole lot of things that you need to outsource. Some immediately, which it took me a while to figure that out. But now I'm still struggling with some things where I'm like, yeah, but I'd have to pay someone $10 an hour to do that. I could just do it. But if I value my time at $10 an hour, then I'm not going to make the money that I want to make. Right. So that's where outsourcing things is so important, and it's a psychological thing that I and many other people have to get over, is that you need to hire people. If you want to make money, you need to be hiring people. If you just happen to be this person that's good at web design, good at accounting, good at programming, go down the list, then yeah, go ahead, do it all. But nobody is that. So you have one or two things that you're good at, and for me it's writing. I can write and I can do sales copy, and now I'm learning pay-per-click advertising, so I'm doing that. But the rest of it, it's I have customer service people, I have a technical person. I have people that handle different aspects, and if I didn't have that, it would be next to impossible to run the businesses that I do. So yeah, that's but that's an ongoing thing, and I think that sometimes that prevents me from expanding to other things, because I'm still doing too much. I still do things that all the time that I'm like, someone else could do this, but I just get in the habit of doing it, and it's just part of what I do. So
yeah, totally. Well, when Grant Farwell was over here the other day, and I had him on the podcast, Grant runs Bark in San Diego. Grant had all these ideas for my podcasts and how to actually run it as a business that I hadn't even thought of, because it's just a completely different perspective. He thinks differently than I do. Grant walked out the door and I went, oh my God, if I get this going, I'm going to definitely have to hire other people, because there's so much of this, web design, marketing I can do, sales I can do, but there's so much of it you don't think about.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say too. When I got started online, the good thing that I did, I know that I have no ability to do web design. I learned HTML. I did my own sites back when it was a lot harder to do sites, and I hated it. It took me forever to do everything. So one of the things I did right at the beginning was I hired somebody on Elance to do my website, and I paid them $100, and it wasn't a good site. It wasn't even. But then after I started making some money on it, then I hired somebody else that was a little bit better, and I paid them a few $100, and they made a better looking site. And then so I just went from there, and I'm glad that's one thing that I would recommend. If you're not a designer, don't try to do that, because there's so many people out there that can do it really cheap.
Yeah, or there's alternatives to Bluehost.com, which I actually found out through the Pat Flynn How to Make a Podcast, which is great. You can actually pay at a really reasonable price to make your own website. Yeah. I like that idea too.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And just kind of depends on the individual. And I think when you're a solo entrepreneur, it's always hard to keep track of where you're going in the future, right? Because you're going to have the vision. Do you keep like a to-do list or anything to kind of keep you motivated and to keep going? Because I know if you go in the long term, it's very intimidating.
Yeah. I don't really do the long-term goals. I mean, I think like in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he gets into the idea of doing the like 6 month, it would be his furthest goal out.
Okay.
And then 3 months, he has 3 month goals and 6 month goals, and then just kind of the day-to-day stuff. But yeah, I'm mostly day-to-day, and I have specific focuses each day, but I don't really do like, projecting way out in the future.
Mm-hmm. Is it like business focuses? So like today I'm going to put up so many new products, or is it more of a mental kind of thing, or is it both that you...
It's probably going to be both. I want to just tackle a few things every day, and that's the tough thing is when I start writing down what I'm going to do, either the night before or the morning of, I start making this list that's like 20 things, and then I get halfway through my day and I've done 2, and I'm like, but so I like to narrow down that and just go, okay, these are the 3 most important things, and just do that. And then if you sit there and it's 12 noon, you could still do more, then do more. But
yeah, I totally know how that is.
Yeah.
When you get charged up about an idea, and generally you just start going, and you're like, oh my God, I've gotten like half of what I thought I would get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, I think you gotta love being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. That's something I've been struggling with in really getting Dream Chasers going, because it's not a pretty thing. Mm-hmm. We get told that we're supposed to have these pretty lifestyles, with the Bentleys and the hot chicks, the et cetera. How do you encourage people to pursue something? And I think this is true about your dreams too, that may not be exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's that's life. I mean, that's the way it is. And entrepreneur, you said it right. I mean, entrepreneurialism is very messy, and there's no like you've probably seen it on Facebook or something where it's like that graph of like you have a goal to get from this point up to this point over here, and you think you're just going to go in this straight line. Like, I'm going to do all these things, and then I'm going to get to my goal, and it ends up being like bouncing all around. Like, you go way over here, and then you go way up here, and then you go way down here. So you're doing like you're way, but then eventually you make your way to that. But it's nowhere like what you thought was going to happen. It's not at all what happened. So that's where I think is the ability to adapt to constant change and constantly having to learn new things. Like that's the important thing is just being able to accept change and then be able to learn and kind of learn your way out of situations. So learning a new task or whatever it is, and then getting past it. Because life is all about change. Even if you sat in this apartment for 20 years and did your same job, and that was all you did, everything is changing. Everything is constantly changing. Like, all our technology in 20 years is going to be completely different. So you have to change, or you just you just can't avoid that. So.
And changing is a hard thing.
Yeah, for most people, it's very hard. It is very hard.
And I think you would agree, there's a famous Steve Jobs quote, I don't remember which speech it was from, but he talks about you have to have faith that the dots are going to connect at some point. And I think that's true in anything you do, because there's no linear path. You kind of want there to be, because there's this resistance that you have to change. And I think it's a natural wanting for comfort to some degree.
Yeah, well, I think also, I listened to, and I think we talked about this, James Altucher, his podcast, and he said something that I totally agree with, and I had talked about it a few years back in an internet marketing meetup, that eventually there's really not going to be any jobs in the world. It's just not, everyone's going to have like a skill or something that they do, and everyone's going to have a business in some sense. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe your business is writing, or maybe your business is supplying admin work for somebody else. But that's still your business. So whatever it is. So I think that's where it becomes really important to do this, to see that coming. Like, this corporate world is just not going to be there at some point, and it's not going to supply any kind of comfort for people. So to be able to see that and go, okay, I need to learn something. I think that's really important right now.
Yeah, I think having a field that you can not only specialize in but expand in as well is huge. Because if you say, I'm just a salesperson in this world right now, that may get you by for 1 or 2 years, but if you're not also a good writer and have a marketing background, you're not going to be able to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, although sales would be a great place to be. That's for sure.
I mean, I'm in sales, and I think it's a great place to be. But I think you would agree with this. Just encourage people to develop more than one skill set, because then you just become more of an asset to whatever you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And you never know when your industry might get phased out for whatever reason. So, yeah, it's good to be flexible.
And this is kind of for the younger people, too. You just don't realize, like, literally in the drop of a day, your whole job could be gone. Your company could literally go bankrupt. I mean, I'm not trying to scare you and going, oh, my God, all these bad things could happen. But the reality is, you just gotta have some sort of backup plan for you to kind of know yourself, to be like, well, if this were to happen, what else can I do? Because that's also part of chasing your dreams, like we talked about earlier. Yeah. It's just like, you gotta be flexible to what happens, and ultimately the most successful people are the ones who can adapt and then grow from that.
Absolutely, yeah. And we talked about this the other day. I think you were asking me about stuff that I've learned that I would do differently if I knew now. And education, learning is the main thing. Like, you can't learn enough. That's, reading books and going to workshops and all that kind of thing. That's so important, and that's how you grow, and that's how you get better at things, and that's how you start to earn more income. And yeah, that's really it. And
that's what's so cool about having someone like you on my show. Like, I'm sitting here and I've already learned like 20 or 30 things just sitting here, even different from our conversation before.
Right.
And it kind of reinforces the thinking. And to be honest with you, before our conversation, I hadn't done one of these in a while. And you forget why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And then you have the conversation and you're like, wow, I totally forgot why I was so inspired in the first place. So, get out there, be with what makes you passionate, because ultimately that's going to be what makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, doing something you're excited about. And I had an interview on my show the other day with a guy that he's building up a business right now, and he's about your age too. And he was talking about some of the myths out there, and now I forgot what I was going to say.
It's all good.
Yeah. What were you just saying right before that?
Oh, it was about the myths with, I was saying that, oh shit, I completely forgot what I was.
Oh, just that you've kind of learned something in this show, and that, kind of getting back to your passion. Oh, I know what it was. So there's a thing out there that people talk about, like, work in your passion, do something that you're passionate about. And that's sort of misleading. And this is what we talked about in the guy that I interviewed last week, that it's nice to be able to, it's great to be excited about what you do, and that's super important. But to say you have to work in something you're passionate about, like if I, for me, my example would be swimming. Like at one time in my life, I was really passionate about swimming. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to do something in swimming. Like I could do something else, but be passionate about the process. Mm-hmm. And just that's what you do. And there was a girl I met in Austin. I was in Austin last summer, and there was a girl that was working for a guy that was running a beard grooming company.
Okay.
And I asked her, and she was like, "Oh, and she worked like 12-hour days and all this stuff." And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely love my work." And I'm like, "You're passionate about beard grooming?" She's like, no, I could care less about beard grooming. I love marketing. I love the process. I love all of it. And so I think that's where you need to get to, at some point, is just, this is exciting stuff. Like, this is your life. This is, you're doing something that is, like James Altucher says, choose yourself. You're choosing yourself.
Absolutely.
You're building this thing yourself, and that's exciting in itself. So that's where it's important to get really excited about the process. So it doesn't really matter what you go into. And the guy that I interviewed, his product was it's called Wet Shave Club. It's a shaving accessories, and it's a monthly box subscription service. And he had never heard of this idea of wet shaving or anything, and he wasn't passionate about it at all. But he's super excited about his company and what they've done and where they're going. So I think that you can find something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be what you always thought you were going to do. I think that's where people get lost. It's like, well, I'm not. I had talked to a guy a while back, and he's like, well, I'm not passionate about anything. So I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm kind of like that too. I have a lot of interest. There's not one thing that I'm just like, this is what I do. So he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I would do in business. So that makes sense. Yeah, but that shouldn't stop you from getting there. You're passionate about your own life, right? And you're passionate about freedom and all the things that could bring you. So that's I think where you have to look at it.
Absolutely, and I think 99.9% of people would say we would edit out the podcast, the little part of the podcast where we had the little pause there. But I think it also teaches a lesson, which is we should not edit ourselves. I want everyone who watches this podcast to say, hey, we're humans too. We're trying to concoct knowledge to share with you all, but you shouldn't, if you really feel something, whether it be in a business conversation, a real conversation, you gotta say it, because otherwise, what's the point? Don't edit yourself. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because then people don't really see the real you. And who knows how that conversation would have turned had we decided to stop the podcast. There's all the dynamics to it that you don't even anticipate. So hold on, whether it be in your business, your life, just keep doing your thing.
There's a book called Radical Honesty. It's a really good book, and the guy, it's all about being just totally honest, as much as 100% all the time. Just always be honest. And he puts limits on it, but there's not many limits. So he talks about how, and he talks about all the benefits of it, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. There's some things where I wouldn't do, but he talks about one of the things at his workshop that he has people do is everyone gets up in front of the room, and you have to get up there naked, and you have to talk about every one of your sexual experiences.
Oh my God.
And so he's like, this is radical honesty. This is as honest as you can be. I mean, that's just one of the things. He's not everything's not that hardcore, but there is something to be said. What you were just saying is being honest about what you want, who you are, who you want to be around. I mean, all that stuff is so important, and to get it down when you're young, rather than waiting, because then you could start living someone else's life, and pretty soon, 10 years later, you're like, wait a minute, what happened? This isn't what I wanted. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, I'm glad we got to have you on the show. Go and listen to the Freedom Loving podcast as well. Kevin's got a lot of great episodes that he's filmed with some phenomenal people who are also sharing insights about their experiences being entrepreneurs and how they got the freedom, etc.
Thanks, Lucas. Yeah, it's been fun, and I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed this, and Freedom Lovin' is my podcast, and if anyone wants to listen to that, it'd be great. I'll try to get this show on there. I don't have actually a video. I don't do YouTube videos. I have a YouTube channel, so maybe we can hook it up that way, but I haven't done any podcasts on the channel, so but I'll promote this any way I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Freedom Lovin' Podcast. To break free today, head on over to freedomlovin.com and download our free guide. 7 practical tips to living free in an unfree world.